Liffey. Following them were more than 100 Catholic priests, led by 2 Capuchin fathers who had given the last rites to the leaders of the Easter Rising, executed just over a year before in Kilmainham jail. Alongside the hearse, 2 rows of Irish volunteers in uniform, looking not unlike soldiers of the Great War, stood ready with their rifles reversed. Behind it, a horse pulled a cart carrying more wreaths, and then came the carriages carrying the chief mourners, Thomas Ashe's father, brother and sister, the official car of the Catholic Archbishop of Dublin, its blinds drawn, the Lord Mayor's carriage, and, snaking far back along the street, dozens of other carriages carrying elected officials from all parts of Ireland, waiting their turn to jolt forward. All morning, people in uniforms, sashes and emblems had been gathering in the surrounding streets to join the procession. Now they stretched out in a long line to march solemnly behind the carriages. Brass bands from the Dublin Fire Brigade, boys from Na Fianna, an Irish nationalist version of Robert Baden-Powell's Boy Scouts, women from Cumann na mBan, the support organisation for the volunteers, hundreds of primary school teachers, all varieties of trade unionists from butchers to brushmakers, widows and relatives of those who took part in the recent insurrection, men and women from the Gaelic Athletic Association carrying hurley sticks over their shoulders. As this long column moved off down Dame Street, the thousands of men and women lining the pavement removed their hats. The hearse passed Dublin Castle, the administrative centre of British power in Ireland, where just the previous Friday night an audience of wounded soldiers had been treated to a concert in St. Patrick's Hall. Tricolours hung from the windows of houses and offices, many of them inscribed with a cross. On the pavement, men made their way through the crowd, handing out reprints of a letter from the Catholic Bishop of Killaloe in the previous day's Freeman's Journal, condemning the slow killing of poor Thomas Ashe. He had been subjected, the bishop wrote, to the sort of cruelty we are accustomed to hear of as possible only in the ancient Bastille or the dungeons of Naples or the black prison of Russia. And the world would soon see in these hideous atrocities what the triumph of English culture means for small nationalities. Half a mile away, on the other side of the river, the English writer Douglas Goldring had taken a taxi to Dublin's principal thoroughfare, Sackville Street, to await the arrival of the cortege. There were so many people that his driver had to lean out of the window to plead with the spectators to move aside and let them through. As the car crawled through the crowd, Goldring spotted people he knew. A friend who appeared to be accompanied by an English staff officer in mufti, a well-to-do Dublin doctor, intellectuals from the city's literary soirees, and the wife of a tobacconist dragging along her 3 rather grubby little boys. Finally, the taxi came to a halt near Lord Nelson's pillar, and Goldring joined the spectators. He watched a gang of schoolboys across the street climb the remaining wall of a building destroyed by shell fire during the suppression of the Rising the previous year, and sit dangling their legs as they waited for the funeral procession to pass. Such was the demand for vantage points that people with houses along the route were able to charge spectators for window seats. Although City Hall was less than 15 minutes' walk away, it was an hour before Goldring saw the procession turn into Sackville Street, advancing silently, save when one band or another struck up a rebel melody. The presence of the Archbishop's car and the Lord Mayor's carriage lent, he thought, a touch of official dignity to the spectacle. A foreigner, Goldring suspected, might conclude that this was the funeral of a famous soldier rather than a convicted criminal. In the middle of the marchers, a homemade banner appeared above the heads of a group of school children, so small that their heads were barely visible. The words, "In